Good evening and welcome to the Nobody Asked Me Guy show. Guys, I am thoroughly excited. Now, it being Black History Month, and, as people of color, we refer to one another as brother and sister. Now, I know you guys know that, right? But we have two biological sisters here, two brilliant sisters. So not only are they sisters because it is our, quote, endearment of one another, they're actually biological sisters. Now, there's so much they have to bring, so much they have to show, tell you. I certainly do not want to be the one to stand in the way and hold up the show. Now, guys, as you know, for those of you that are normal watchers, you can actually FaceTime and you can grab that camera at the bottom if you have any specific questions that you want to ask, or you can put them in the box below. Or sometimes if I'm checking my other monitors and I see your questions, I will try to relate those to our guest. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our guest, and then of course they'll take it from there. Now we have with us, first of all, you guys that have been with me before, Miss Winifred. I know you know Miss Winifred because she brings the pain all the time. And we're introducing not only Miss Winifred Winston, but her sister, Miss Audra Lowray-Upchurch. Now, Audra, at the bottom here with the, if I might call, with the red hair, if I can. Audra Lowray-Upchurch is an award-winning 6-time Amazon best-selling author, speaker, and entrepreneur who encourages men and women to find their voice and shape their stories with a passion to support leaders with a clear vision, create meaningful manuscripts. Audra understands that owning and sharing our individual truths is an important ingredient if we are to leave a lasting legacy. Now, this is just a tidbit. And again, just to bring you guys up to date with Winifred. And Winifred is a dyslexia advocate, best-selling author, enthusiastic speaker, and founder of Dyslexia Advocation. After working for a public school district, serving as an administrator of a special education school, and going through the special education processes with her daughter, Winifred quickly realized African-American parents lacked accurate information about dyslexia interventions and instructional strategies. Not wanting another parent to experience the challenges she faced, her mission is to equip parents with the necessary tools to help their children become successful readers. Yeah. See what I'm talking about? This is just a tidbit. So guys, allow me to officially introduce you to not only Miss Audra Lowray-Upchurch, but again, to Miss Winifred A. Winston. Good evening, ladies.
Hey. Thank you, Marvin.
Listen, ladies, we talked about a litany of things during the onset of trying to schedule this program, about family dynamics, about family dysfunctions, about writing books, about just life in general. And I know many times there's so many, I use the word cookie cutter. There's so many cookie cutter questions, what prompted you to write and all of that. I'm not going to bore you with that. But what I would like to start off with talking about this evening, if, and either one of you feel free to take the first question. If you are or asked by anyone, stranger, etc., what is your main interest in life? What might that be?
Ooh. For me, it makes me think about happiness. I've always wanted to be happy, and I have hanging up in the house, happiness is a journey, not a destination. Mm-hmm. Because through all the trauma, through all the pain, I just wanted to be happy. Like, why is it so hard to be happy and just enjoy life? So for me, happiness.
Okay.
It would be happiness.
I think for me, it's helping others share their authentic story. I think as a people, we've been conditioned to put up a face, and most people that you meet are not living the life that they truly want to live. They're living the life that they've been told to live. And I think if more of us were able to tell our authentic story and be our true selves, we would have that happiness that my sister talks about.
Great. Ladies, as you share that, be happy, authenticity. Those are two very, very powerful words. And of course, we know, we can take it connotatively and do what we think we we wish to do with it. But if we encounter as caring, loving human beings, if we encounter those close to us that are missing out on that happiness, missing out on that feeling good about ourselves, what would you suggest we do as individuals? I mean, I'm not looking for a psychological analysis of anyone, but just off the cuff, you know as well as I do, a lot of times people just want you to listen, and they don't mind just a little advice. So what might you share if I came to either one of you today and said, you know what, ladies, I'm excited about you being here, but I'm a little down today. What might you say to me?
Okay, I'll put this on. And Melvin, your audience is just getting introduced to me, so I might as well just jump on in.
Jump on in. Jump on in.
Those that know me know I'm a straight shooter. And so those I know say that they're feeling down or that they're unhappy, I tell them to choose.
Okay.
Happiness is a choice. How we feel each day is a choice. That was a lesson I learned 35 years ago when I was 15 and homeless living on the subway in New York City. So how you feel, truly how you feel when you wake up in the morning is a choice. None of us are victims, and we have control over the life we live. So it's really about making the choice.
Well, I would ask more because when I think about it's a choice, but for those that have mental illness and they're struggling, it is not that easy because you always have these things in your head telling you you're not good enough, or you have anxiety and you're overthinking things, and it's just not that easy to say, I'm going to be happy today. You know, if there's a chemical imbalance, you've got to do the work to be happy. You know, we don't like to go to therapy. We don't want to talk to professionals. And I've had friends, you know, talk to me and confide in me. And at some point I have to stop them and say, look, you need a professional. I'm here to listen. I'm your friend, but I can't help you. You need to talk to a professional. And I might share how I've spoken with a professional, you know, but it's not that easy. And a lot of times we have this mask and we go through life with this trauma-filled facade that we don't even know we're not happy. We're just putting on this fake front. So I try to ask questions, you know, and talk to them on more than one occasion. And then I say, look, you need to talk to a professional because I struggle with dysthymia, which is long-term mild depression. So people will see me and I'm smiling and I'm upbeat, but it is a struggle some days. So I think it's a little more work for folks to be happy, especially when there's mental illness, because you don't control that.
But Wendy, isn't that even a choice as well? Even if you recommend someone to go to a therapist, they have to choose to go. Right? You can give them every example under the sun. You can talk to them from sun up to sundown, but until they choose, they're not going to go.
But some people don't even have those conversations. People don't talk about that. People don't talk about that. People that I know that are you know, pretty cool with me. If I'm having an episode, I call it an episode. If I'm having an episode, they're like, oh no, you're fine. No, I know when I'm not fine because I'm very aware of me, how I'm feeling. But a lot of people aren't. And they're not even, they're ashamed, they're embarrassed, you know, so they're not going to say, oh, I'm going to choose to go to therapy. They don't even know that they can just call someone and talk to someone, you know, and have that escape right then and there. So a lot of times people don't know how to get help, right? Because if it's been your way of life, if it's been normal, then you don't know no different. Like when I grew up, it wasn't until my maybe 30s that I realized that how I grew up wasn't normal. That was dysfunction, right? Because it was the way of life. Everybody I knew had something going on. So my something going on wasn't any different than their something going on. And then I said, well, damn, that wasn't normal. That's not normal. Because I thought no family's perfect. Everybody has their quirks. Physical abuse, that's not normal. You know, the sexual assault, I knew that wasn't normal, but that to me was like the big thing that caused me to start researching. and looking into it like, no, that was dysfunction, that was trauma, you know. And now I'm a mom, I realize how I respond to certain things are a direct result of the way I was raised and the trauma that I was raised in. I read an example one time where they say some people, the only way they know how to communicate is by yelling, right? Yelling and screaming, because that's all they heard growing up. And every time I raise my voice to my daughter, I think, oh shit, like, don't do that. Bring it down. You know what I mean? Like, bring it down. So, you know, sometimes we don't know when we don't know. And then you surrounded by the same group of people that don't know. So it's all for the fools together. I hate to say it like that.
You know what? You made an interesting point here. Now, 30. So that must have been 2 years ago. First of all, you said you were about 30 when you first.
Oh, please don't make her head and know what it is.
I just had a birthday too last month.
Yeah, well, happy birthday. But you know what, Audra, most of us, if we're honest, and both of you have shared that you are straight shooters. Most of us, if we're honest, especially in our quote Black families unquote, is that, you know, it's always been taboo. You don't talk about things that happen in the house. You don't talk about anything that transpires. But many times you are dying inside.
Absolutely.
What would you think as we talk about family dysfunction and reaching out and knowing to seek help? What if you haven't reached that pinnacle? You've looked inside yourself and said, I need to reach out and get some help. Can you suggest? And again, I know you're not a psychiatrist. I'm just asking generically.
If someone reached out to you and they needed psychological help, I would recommend they contact a therapist. I don't delve into areas that I'm not licensed in. I always say I'm not a therapist, nor do I play one on TV. Okay. And I understand that sometimes when a person's at rock bottom, you may think you're helping them by what you're saying, but because you're not trained, you could be taking them down a different path that you didn't intend to. So I don't delve in those deep conversations. I would refer that they get some assistance. Now, there is an organization that I love their approach and their methodology called Internal Family Systems, IFS. And I love their approach, their therapy model, because there's nothing traditional about it. And I think it's a great model for a lot of African Americans to embrace with their trauma. So I would look up maybe an IFS therapist in their area and recommend that they go. But again, it's their choice. My mother suffers with mental illness and has since I was a child, which is why I was homeless at the age of 15. And so my sister, who passed away last year, also suffered deeply with mental illness. So I personally understand what it's like to live in a household with people who suffer with it. But I also understand they have to choose to take the medication. They have to choose to go to therapy. They have to choose to make a change. And if they don't, then it's up to their relatives and those that love them to take some legal action to get them some assistance.
Wow, you know, that is very, very, very interesting that you would share that last piece, especially. It's up to the persons that love them to take some legal action to get them some assistance. And I can't tell you guys how many times, as a former educator, is when we talk to parents about trying to get little Johnny some help. And, you know, I was always high school, so little Johnny was no longer little Johnny. But, well, you know, you have to, you know, they have to decide they want to go. And it's very difficult to get people to understand what you've just said. You know, that they are destructive. They are ruining their lives. They're ruining your life and everybody else's life. And they're just going to flop around out there until they're dead. And that's an ugly analogy, but unfortunately, many times it bodes to be true. But, you know,
my mom was at the hospital. My mother was 88 pounds. She was an adult woman and she was 88 pounds. Okay.
88 pounds.
88 pounds as a grown woman. My mother had 4 sisters and a mother living in the same city with her, and no one did anything. So I understand how quickly and how devastating that spiral can be. And until I was of legal age where I could step in, there was nothing I could do. But once I became legal, I went to the Supreme Court and I got a mental hygiene warrant and had my mother forcibly put in the hospital to have her evaluated. And that is how we got her back on track. She soon, of course, fell off back and forth for 20 years, and we had to eventually get her put in the facility permanently. But yeah, families really have to get involved and not just brush it off and say, that's just how Johnny is. That's just how Mary is. No, it's not. And if Mary or Johnny can't make the decision for themselves, then the people that love them have to be willing to acknowledge what they see and take action and do something about it.
But see, my thing is the family don't always have it together. Hurt people, broken people can't help if they haven't healed. You know, look at our brother. I mean, well, for the viewers that don't know, we found each other in 2018. So she found me on Ancestry.com. And that's another topic for another day. But,
another show, y'all.
but she found me on Ancestry.com, and we both grew up in Brooklyn, New York. You know, she's spoken about her homelessness and her mother with mental illness. Well, we have a brother that we share that suffers from mental illness, and he sexually assaulted me when I was 18. So when I go back to how he was acting in the house, he was schizophrenic, and we didn't know. My mother was a nurse, and to my knowledge, she didn't know. She did not raise him, right? So when he started acting weird, we've got some other siblings over here that suffered from bipolar and depression, and they used crack and alcohol to cope with it. So when folks use negative coping mechanisms, they start drinking, they're alcoholic, they're a crackhead. You know, my mother, you know, was supporting her children and trying to help them, but enabling them. There's no getting help and counseling and all of that. The 80s and crack just hit our family hard. Mm-hmm. But when my brother was going through this, I was 17. I was from 14 to 18 is when he was led up to him trying to sexually assault me. Right. So at 14, I'm like, this is my brother. He wouldn't do that. Maybe he wasn't trying to touch my leg. Maybe he was going for the remote. And the more I spoke up and the more I told my mother, the more she shut down. Then when the time happened, he tried to rape me. My mother is like, I'm going to lose everything. How am I going to help my daughter? How am I going to help my son? And as I went through the healing process, that's when I learned that my mother was broken. So when I was telling her these things he was doing, it was triggers for her. And that's why she was shutting down, closing down, not talking about it, you know, not even giving me eye contact when she could see that I'm damn near in tears. I'm upset because that was a trigger for her. So you have a house full of broken people, a house full of mental illness. My mother tried to tell my brother, you need to get help. He held her up by the neck on the wall and her feet were dangling. Wow. Okay? So like sometimes it's not that simple as, oh, okay, we're family. We're going to step in here and do X, Y, Z. Because when my mother died, truth be told, they're my siblings. I did not give birth to them. I had to live my life. So I wasn't going back to see, oh, are you going to stay in rehab? Are you clean yet? Are you, nope. I gave a lot to my nephews because they were children, but those adults, no, they were adults.
But that's why, Wendy, I think it's important that people could tell their stories, be able to tell their authentic stories, because there could be someone out there. For example, if it was easier, right? If it was more commonplace for people of color to share their stories of trauma and mental illness, the stigma wouldn't be so binding. The stigma wouldn't be so crippling, right? So it would facilitate the conversation for folks to get the help they need, or for them to consider options they probably wouldn't consider because of the shame. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping our people, right, feel comfortable being authentic and sharing their stories. So when you have a household that's filled and riddled with mental illness and drug abuse, you know, maybe it won't be the auntie, the grandma, the cousin, but maybe it'll be the neighbor next door. Maybe it'll be the relative that lives down the street. Maybe it'll be someone else because they've read stories and they've recognized, oh, I know what's happening there. I only had one teacher in my life growing up that questioned my mother's mental health. One. And I remember her pulling me out of the hallway at Lefferts Junior High School on Empire Boulevard and asking me, is everything okay at home? But as a kid, I knew things weren't right, but I was so terrified to tell this teacher the truth. But I was a nerd, right? I was a reader. So had I even read a story of a young girl like me who had a mother like mine, maybe I would have told this teacher the truth. And maybe I could have been rescued from the life that I wound up living. And that's why it's so important that we just have to talk about this issue. And that's why podcasts like this, shows like this are so important. Or we can have these uncomfortable, difficult conversations, because if we talk about it enough, maybe people will get rescued by someone. If it's not the sister, cousin, brother, auntie, nephew, maybe it'll be somebody else. They'll recognize it and then they know what actions to take.
Even when Audra found me and I was calling my older siblings and our nieces to like tell them about her, one of our nieces said, well, don't tell her, all about the family, don't tarnish us. I said, I'm a grown woman and I'm going to share my experience and my story with her. She's smart enough to decipher and figure things out for herself. Even then, and this is our sister. So this is family, right? This is family. Don't tell her this and don't tell her that. I said, I can tell her whatever I want to tell her, so therein lies, oh, let's keep it a secret. Let's not say anything. So yeah, I told her she needed counseling though. I said, you need to work through some issues because, we're grown now. We're grown now with families of our own. And I'm not going to take this. I'm not going to continue this cycle. It's going to stop with me.
Absolutely.
So as the two of you share that, would you mind talking a little bit about how you actually, if I can use the word, ran into one another on Ancestry.com? And can you talk about that just a little bit?
I just want, because I just shared this story with someone today, and we wound up crying on the phone. Wendy always says I'm a baby, but it is what it is, right? I am a non-New Yorker. Okay, so in 2018, I was launching my second anthology, Unchain My Legacy. And as we talked about and promoted the book, it kept bothering me that I'm talking about my legacy when I don't even know my history. At the age of 14, I found out that my mother's husband was not my father. And, being nosy and inquisitive kid looking through papers I probably shouldn't have looked through. But by that point, my mom's mental illness was really in a bad place. And getting answers from her was basically not going to happen. So I had a name. I had his name, and I found out I had that kind of twisted. I had his middle name as his last name. And I had little details, that I had an uncle that had a dry cleaners down the street from where we lived, that he drove a cab. I had little details about who he was, but not much else. No picture, no nothing. So at this point, when the book was about to launch, I said, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I will find my father this year. Before this book goes to print, I'm going to answer this question. And so I did a DNA test on Ancestry.com. And it took forever for those results to come. Like, I was like, they so wrong for this. What is going on? I kept checking and checking and checking. It took about 8 weeks, y'all. That's just not right. Somebody needs to write Ancestry and tell them to speed up their process a little bit. So finally, I got the answer. I had a match, and she was pretty high up on the ratings. So they list your matches by chromosome match. And she was right beneath my daughter, but above my first cousin. So I'm like, okay, who is this person? And of course, she didn't use her real name. She used a username. And so we had to do some searching and track her down. And the next morning, that information was found. And I was sitting at the hairdresser and got the courage to call her. And we talked. And I had the whole salon crying. I'll let you tell me.
Okay.
I can imagine, because you're getting a lot of teardrops now on these monitors here, but go ahead.
I had signed up for Ancestry in 2017. So this was April 2018 when she found me. I signed up because I watched the show, The Book of Negroes. I think it came on as a series, but I watched it. They played it all together. And I was fascinated because that movie had someone, slave trying to go back to Africa. None of the shows showed someone trying to go back. So I was like, well, where am I from? You know, because she just wanted to go back. So I got my results in December 2017. I don't even believe I looked at who you could be related to. I don't know if I even looked at that feature. I just saw I was mostly Nigerian first, and then it switched. And I was like, dang. So I never logged back on. I didn't log back on. I just got my DNA results, and that was it. And then maybe a couple of months, a third or fourth cousin, close to nothing, that's how my mother would call him, reached out to me. He was in Harlem, and I'm like, oh yeah, he was our great uncle's grandson or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, this Ancestry is cool, but I still never logged back in because I think his messages came to my email. So it still didn't require me to log into the account. Fast forward, I get a message on Facebook through my business account. And it's like, oh, my name is so-and-so, and I'm trying to help someone find you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, she think you might be her sister or something. I'm like, okay, I grew up in the days of pen pals. I still have them, 2 of them. We've met, and, that's how we found each other, Word Up and Right On magazine. So I was like, fine. And what I didn't know, and we talk about this all the time, I look back and I was so insensitive because I just was like, oh yeah, he dead. He died 6 years ago. I didn't go to the funeral, and she was crying. I said, girl, save them tears. Once you learn about this family, you can fill up a bucket. What the hell I was thinking.
Tell them about the picture, Wendy. Tell them about the picture.
And so then I just started sending her pictures. Like I sent her the obituary. I'm like, you got 4, wait a minute, 1, I always have to count now. 1, 2, okay, 2, 3. You got 4 brothers, 3 sisters, and she doesn't have any brothers from her mom's side. So she was so excited. She had brothers and all these sisters. I'm like, you have a plethora of nieces and nephews, and she have a niece that's close to her age because our oldest niece is older than me. So I started sending her all these pictures, and then she started crying harder because she had never seen a picture of him. And I told her our grandmother was half white. That's why she don't have a top lip.
But let me pause you for a second. I can't tell you how I didn't realize the depth of the hole that was there.
Okay.
Of course, I'm sad that I didn't get to meet my biological father, and he passed before, finding this stuff out. But getting these answers has filled such a hole because I look so much different than the sisters I have with my mom. There were 3 girls, and I was the baby. So, and now I have a little sister. It's so cool. But like I have a gap between my teeth. She's getting her now with braces. It really annoys me. But, and they used to tease me when I was little because of my features. Right. And so to find these things out, I can't tell you how it made me feel and how connected I instantly felt the moment we met.
Yeah, and we look more alike than all of the siblings.
Yeah, you guys definitely look alike.
And she looks a lot like our dad too, because sometimes when certain pictures she posts, I'll call her Fred Jr. One of our even our younger brother, he was skeptical. Shit, he probably was skeptical of me. I'm like, nah, they were married. But he was like looking at her and checking her out when we went to North Carolina. And then our oldest sister, we were all driving in the car, and she made a face or laugh some kind of way. And see, they grew up with my father, the younger brother and the older sister. I did not. I wasn't around him a lot. So Audra did some kind of laugh or something, and my sister yelled out. We thought maybe there was a deer or I hit something. We were like, oh, what happened? Oh my God, I saw Daddy. And she just was she was just like in disbelief, like, oh my gosh, like she really favors him and his mother, our grandmother. So we went to North Carolina, and she got to meet more siblings and nieces and a nephew. And they tried to find his burial plot where he where they laid them to rest or whatever. But I wouldn't get out of the car. It was cold. But yeah, so that's how we got connected. And it's weird because I have all these siblings. She's the only one that has been to my home in Maryland. We have so many things in common. It's almost scary.
Really? So we are the only two of our parents' kids who have master's degrees.
Oh yeah.
We both are the only two that are homeowners.
Okay.
We purchased our house in the same year.
Right. We purchased our house in the same year. Right.
Okay.
We are both running with Black Girls Run.
Right. We both went. I ran 3 marathons. She had a track scholarship. It's just so crazy, the similarities that we have without even knowing each other. So from the moment we met, we felt connected.
But let me tell you this, Mel.
This is awesome. Please continue. This is awesome.
Let me tell you. I was operating a career consulting business for 10 years. And then I had my daughter, and then online businesses changed, right? You got memberships, digital products, or whatever. So I'm talking to her and I'm like, yeah, I want to write a book. I just paid this book coach, but I've had 2 floods this winter. I got a lot going on. I wasn't able to get it done. And I said, yeah, and I operated my own business and now I want to change it. I said, I'm not sure if you know about this, because a lot of my friends didn't really understand what I did business-wise and how you can have a home-based business and the things you can do online. So I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking about maybe a membership platform or something. I don't know if you know about this. I am a 4-time Amazon best-selling author, and I just quit my 6-figure job, and I am a full-time entrepreneur. And I run a business like that. But when she said all that, I was like, you do what? And I was like, okay, like in my head, I was like that, but I was playing it cool. I was like, okay, then that's good. And then I go through her Facebook. I saw she walked across somebody's stage. Oh, she looked like she got somebody's degree. I'll take her. I'll trade her for one of them. But that was a big, big thing because I was able to just jump in and help her at events and go to events with her. So we have these conversations and we talk about things that we can't talk about with any of our other siblings, right? We just have this connection. So that was, yeah.
We have these great conversations, interest rates, stuff happening in the market, but then we can also shift and talk about, pop culture. We can shift and talk about entrepreneurship. So it's so great to have these types of conversations with a sibling. Because it's not, I haven't had this before. So
and let me tell you, when you tie it back to family trauma and dysfunction, so all of my sisters, all of my sisters, my mom's daughter, and then the 2 that we have with our dad, they had abused drugs and alcohol at some point. And they're like 16, 18 years older than me, another 6 years older than me. So there's a huge age difference. And then the one that's closest to me spent most of her life on crack. So we don't have that type of relationship. I love my sister. I've always loved my sister. I've never been embarrassed. I've never been that person. I'm like the total opposite New York girl than Audra. At 10, I was telling my teacher, my other brother was beating on me. And that's why I ain't been to school and I got this sling on my arm. I was calling 911 saying, it ain't right. I want to press charges. And my mother was like, no, don't do it. And I'm like, I'm doing it. So having this relationship with a sister wasn't natural to me, right? It was like it was weird. It was uncomfortable. It wasn't normal because my sisters have always been my best friends. Those are the people that I talk to all the time. That's who my daughter calls auntie, so it was not comfortable at all. And then people would see us.
Interesting.
And they would say, oh my gosh, y'all look so much alike. Oh, I thought you were Audra. Or they would say, your mannerisms are the same. And it was very uncomfortable. And it was like I had to kind of like make myself be engaged. She was all happy and gung-ho because I was so used to not engaging because if you're smoking crack or alcoholic, what do we have to talk about? So I was used to just have a conversation, how you doing the check-in and going about my business, and then I found myself telling my best friend, I talked to my sister. Wow, I said that. I talked to my sister today. I talked to her yesterday. So for me, it wasn't like a normal just thing. It was really uncomfortable in the beginning because I never had that. I'd always say, you know, some people have close family and siblings, and some people have close friends. I have close friends, and the really special people that God plucked, he made it where they had both, right? So that was just my thing growing up. Like, I don't have this close sibling family bond. Like, so what? It's okay. And so it was really uncomfortable for me in the beginning.
And then it probably didn't help that I was all mushy about it. I'm like, I love you, sis.
Well, ladies, you know what? Perfect segue, because this is listen, we're gonna have to do part 2, 3, 4, and 5 of this. let's talk about the books a little bit, if you will. I mean, the first one, second one, whichever ones you ladies feel comfortable, the one you collaborated on or the ones you did separately, whichever ones you feel comfortable elaborating on, please share.
Well, I definitely about the one that we collaborated on. As I mentioned, I help leaders produce anthologies to increase their exposure, influence, and income. And so the anthology that I recently released, my sister was one of the co-authors, which was fantastic. It hit #1 on Amazon. It's pretty darn awesome. And it's called Unchain Me Mama, The Forgiveness Factor.
Yes.
And at first, that wasn't the project that Wendy had signed up to be a part of, as I actually released 2 anthologies last year. But getting to know my sister and knowing her story, I thought there was a different story she needed to share. So I'll let her take it on from here.
Okay, so one thing that we work on is separating business from when she's just my sister. We try hard to do that, but sometimes it don't always work, right? Because sometimes if she's excited about something or I'm excited about something, I can share it with her and she gets it, and vice versa. So we were just having a regular conversation. It wasn't business. And I was talking about my mother, how, you know, regardless that my brother tried to rape me, I still love my mother. You know, she had a stroke in the midst of that. And I just automatically, you know, didn't go back to school, and just everything was about caring for my mom. Right. And I just talked about how everybody loved my mom, and our house, everybody lived with us at some point. So I was just talking about my mom and just sharing with her about my mom. And so I was going to be in a different book project. So she listened to my conversation. Okay. So then the next day or so, she's like, you know, she puts on her business hat. You know, I've been thinking, and, you know, you were sharing about your mom, and, you know, I really feel like the other book would be a better fit because there's a story there. I hear pain, you know, when you talk about your mom. Took our personal conversation and then fit it into me being in the other book. And I said, I don't want to talk about that. It is painful, and I never even delve into that story about that pain. And the name of that book is Unchain Me Mama, The Forgiveness Factor. And it's about that journey to forgiveness. And the more I thought about it, I said, well, damn it. I don't know about that, because I share everything, but I just don't talk about my mother because, you know, that's my mom. And I'm like, I'm going to talk about my mom. But, you know, there was a lot of pain, and I was very angry with her for a while because I felt like she always chose them, the crackheads and schizophrenic who tried to rape me. What about me? And so I wrote that story, and I talked about my journey to forgiveness. And in writing that story, what I realized is I had to forgive myself, because I felt so guilty for being such an angry child, and she was just a single mom doing the best she could. So then that's how that came to fruition. And I write about the journey to forgiveness, from growing up and being resentful in New York, her moving us to North Carolina. And I'm telling her, don't move us to North Carolina. The crack costs more down there. You know, you're going to be hard on us. I know people.
The crack cost more down there.
Yes.
Wow.
You know, in New York, back in the 80s, the guys would travel down south to sell the drugs because they make more money. So I'm like, you're moving to try to get us away from crack. Like, they sell it down there too. So I was very resentful, very angry. And then, you know, the sexual assault happened with my brother. So there was so much pain there. And I knew by sharing that story that it would help others. And I've always shared to help others and to help myself. We know that Monique, the comedian, her brother sexually assaulted her, and she's still very angry because that plays into why she was mad at Oprah, because Oprah interviewed the brother or some family members. And people don't talk about incest. They don't talk about being molested by family members. And that's something that I talk about. And our siblings, they don't want to hear it, but I tell them blow by blow. I tell them about the whole night that happened. And now it's in the book. They can read it. But I always talk about it because I said I'm breaking the cycle.
Absolutely.
I'm breaking the
It
cycle.
has to be broken. It has to be broken.
Yeah,
it has to be broken.
She took my personal conversation and,
But if I might add, wow, this is such a powerful story. As a male, it angers and saddens me as to how society seems to give what am I saying? What do I want to say? Carte blanche to men that commit the incest, that will not be responsible, etc., without holding us accountable, but will run up and down the street and fall out because they get shot down in the street. And they have just brutalized a family member, as you're sharing, Winifred, when they raped the sister and things like that. So as a male, it angers me, but at the same time, it saddens me because I see all the time young men and older guys, seem to have no concept of really what it is to be a man. If you show any sentiment, care, or concern, then you are weak. But if you're brutal, disrespectful, and nasty, then you're a man. But I tell you, ladies, I love to tell my wife this all the time. Having been a Golden Gloves boxer, having been a star football player, etc., I said, women would tell, our friends and stuff, tell me, oh, you gotta hook me up with him. I said, hey, you don't want to meet him. And I'll be honest with you, lady, like you straight shoot, I said, because he's a low down son of a, you don't want to meet him. I said, you are just fascinated with the fact that, quote, the newspapers and TV think he's a star, but he's a real lowlife. So it's sad that we do not look at ourselves as men and understand what being a man really is. And it's sad that other men do not try to train our men and our boys. And people say, well, what is a man? And you ask a man, you ask 100 men, what's a man? And then they'll give you 100 definitions. So as I'm listening to both of you, Audra and Winifred, as you share that, and as Audra talked about her mom going on down to 88 pounds, having mental issues, and as you're saying with your mom, was shut down and closed in. And I have to be honest with you, I have 4 siblings. And I think about all the things my mom and I used to talk about. And you hear stories all the time. And I'm that kid my mom had 4 children. I'm the only one whose dad she wasn't married to. Now, let's add insult to injury. Then, as a little boy, I was told somebody else was my dad. So we finally got all that foolishness straightened out. But the point I'm making is this, because of what both of you are saying, is that as we talk about family dysfunctions, family relationships, family dynamics, is the ugliness that continues to happen and continues to ruin people's lives, because we think we have some kind of secret to hide. And you said it also, Winifred, as you say, your other siblings were saying, well, don't tell her all that. In essence, can I paraphrase? Don't tell her all of the dirt and how dysfunctional we are. Just tell her whatever pleasant pieces you may be able to pull out. And with this said, and I'm done after this, you have people say, well, why start trouble? Why bring up this or bring up that? And again, as a man, as an educator, as a person that works with young people all the time, is that I'm still trying to understand to this very day is when we refuse to confront situations that are potentially explosive, situations that can potentially ruin people's lives, etc. Why won't we step up to the plate? instead of waiting until the bomb explodes, and then the person have to spend the rest of their lives being in some therapeutic setting, when in fact we could have possibly eliminated that process altogether. So as I'm listening to these stories, they're not stories, they're life events. You know, having to grow with a mom. I mean, Audra, I can't even fathom being homeless. I understand the concept, but as a person, it's like, man, for instance, when I'm tired, irritated, or whatever, the first place I want to go is home. So when I say I can't fathom it, at least I can go home. But my God, it's got to be horrific. And I say that about the homeless people now, is you don't have any place to go.
And Melvin,
yes,
when she was stories, Facebook friends, where I live, one time she spent the night on the corner of my block. In the corner of my block, she stayed there. She was they call it couch surfing.
Okay.
And really saddens me because she was like 5 houses down in the same neighborhood, and my mom had a brownstone. We had a home. Everybody lived with us. My father, although our father divorced my mom, my older siblings, if they didn't have a place to stay, they stayed at our house. You know, like everybody lived with us at some point in time. And so when that girl said that, I'm like, she was right at the corner. Yeah. Like she was right there. Like I lived on Lincoln Place between Brooklyn and Kingston. She was on Brooklyn Avenue and Lincoln Place on the corner. So I could have bumped into her at the grocery store and never knew.
And never knew it.
You know, one of our nieces went into foster care because our sister was on drugs real bad. And I remember telling my mother, that's my niece. We got a house. Why can't she come live with us? There's just no way, had we known about Audra, that she would have been couch surfing. I would have been in my room because the two of us would have been trying to hide from everything else that was going on. But that also was really sad. And because my dad took me and our brother, you know, he would have took her. She might have been down south, but he would have taken her. You know, she wouldn't have been homeless. Yeah. So that makes me really sad that we were right in the same neighborhood. Yeah. And I would have been like, that's my sister. She is gonna stay here.
Well, I tell both of you ladies what I mean. My hat is off because wow. Again, allow me to say, people have all kinds of opinions about what someone should do, and their life should have gone like this, and their life should go like that. But in very simple terms, and I didn't coin the phrase, but they don't know your story.
Absolutely.
They just see a finished product, you know, and wow. Well, listen, ladies, I'm being selfish because I'm enjoying this so much. I really hadn't planned to keep you, but about 30 minutes, like we're going over that. We're going to have to schedule again and talk some more about those books and about the book writing services and things like that. I am an amateur author myself, Ms. Audra. I've written several books, and my latest one is called Mothers and Their Smen, an introspective look at mothers rearing their sons. And that's another story that we have to talk about some other time. And but ladies, listen. It's been great. And if you have any parting words you want to say, but I'm telling you, once we get done with this show, we're going to schedule to come back again.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Winifred, for even extending this invitation and telling me about this amazing show. Anytime I get to hang out with my sister is a good day. So I'm just thankful to have this time, because all of these things we're doing right now, guys, these are new memories for us. These are new things for us. And we're establishing a whole different legacy. So I am excited just to have this. This is our first interview together. So it's pretty dope. It is. Right. So it's pretty dope experience. I am so happy and so thankful. And for those of you guys that want to keep in touch, my website is AudraUpchurch.com. And there you can click on Winifred's picture on my homepage and grab a copy of Unchain Me Mama, The Forgiveness Factor, and read her amazing story that she shared with the world. And I'm super, super, super proud and honored that my sister is a part of my book project. I mean, Ah, love it.
How cool is that?
Right.
I would just like to tell anyone who is struggling with trauma, with dysfunction, and you've got that with you in adulthood. First of all, you're not alone. And second of all, there's always time to change and heal. So it's not too late. That's what I want to leave you with. It's not too late. And I am just a product of, it's not too late. And you're not alone. You're not alone with your feelings, with your thoughts. Don't guilt yourself up about certain things when it regards to family. Oh, I didn't call them. My aunt say the phone rings on both ends. Right? So, you know, they call you. They didn't visit you. Well, why you don't come visit me? Well, you ain't been here to see me. So I just want to leave you with, it is not too late to heal. It is not too late to work through that pain. Thanks for having me, Melvin.
Listen, thank both of you, Miss Audra and Miss Winifred, for being here. Guys, we're wrapping up another segment of the Nobody Asked Me Guys show. As you know, I'm your host, Melvin Lars. And guys, you know, most Friday nights at 7 p.m. is when we come back and have these awesome conversations. And you guys know the kind of awesome guests that we have. And let me say to all of our viewers that are there, man, I'm shocked you guys didn't come and ask any questions, but you know, you don't have to. But we do appreciate the hearts and the thumbs up that you're sending. And to our new audience, you can always contact me at www.dyingonmyfeet.com. Now, once you get to that website, then you can find all of my social media outlets there. And also take it a step further. I have my business cell phone that's available 24/7 at 440-935-0374. And again, it was super, super, super great having Miss Winifred Winston and Miss Audra with us this evening, because we know that when you have individuals that are not only intellectual but beautiful and have something to say, it can only be a plus. So ladies, we thank you so very much for agreeing to be with us, and we will do this again. So have a great evening.